Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Denmark and revisit a brewery that has featured on the channel a good couple of times before. I think this is going to be review number 8 or so that I've done from them. I've had a variety of different styles from them before, and I've been quite impressed with those. So I'm quite curious to see how this one turns out today. For this review then, we are going to go to Greve, which is a little bit to the southwest of Copenhagen, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Alefarm Brewing. So this particular beer is called Monolith. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a double imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Looking at the ingredients list, it seems like it might be a New England IPA, but I'm sure we'll find that out for sure when we open up and have a little look at it. But yeah, definitely nice to return to Alefarm Brewing once again. This is my second beer from them this month. The last one we had was Mornings on Mission Bay, which was a regular IPA, New England IPA, and both of these beers were released as part of the local Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2021. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with it then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Alefarm Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly because I live very close to Denmark and I love reviewing my Danish beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Alefarm Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So Alefarm, as I've told you before, is the brainchild of Andreas Skrid Larsen and Kasper Tiedemann. And the company was founded back in 2015, so they've been around a few years now. But Andreas had been a home brewer for a while, but he'd worked for a period of time as a librarian, whereas Kasper has a very extensive background in the IT sector, and he's actually involved in various different companies and organisations, one of which is his own consultancy firm. But originally they based the company on a farm to the north of Copenhagen, hence the name Alefarm, but they soon moved the business to Køge, again to the southwest of Copenhagen, and for a long time they were just brewing very small batches of beer on a 200-litre brew kit, and this was basically intended as a sort of pilot or transition brew kit, but they ended up using it for a little longer than they expected, I think. But a little bit later on in 2018 they opened a new 20 hectolitre brewery in Greve, and this had a canning line. And after this, their beer started to be exported abroad. It was actually quite hard to find their beers even in Copenhagen at some points before this. But at this point, Andreas left the company and went into brewing cider. And they also had Mark Walewski brewing for them for a period of time as well. But he previously worked for Beavertown, from what I understand, but he's now at Mikkeller in London. But these days the brewery is run on a daily basis by Kasper and his wife Britt. They do the brewing, they do the business side of things, they take care of everything from what I understand, although Kasper I think still has a little bit of involvement in the IT sector as well. But they've been very prolific over the last few years. They are well respected in Denmark, and as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this particular beer for you, they've produced around 300 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. They've done a lot of New England hazy type IPAs. There's been a few sour beers from this brewery as well. And you know, I've had a few dark beers from them too. I've had some imperial stouts and imperial porters and stuff like this. I think they do a whole host of different things. There's still quite a few styles that I've not tried from this brewery yet, right enough. But yeah, hopefully we can have a look at a few different things at some point in the future. But I do like to buy up the Danish beers when they make it through Systembolaget here in Sweden, and there was 2 Alefarms this month, and I've not seen Alefarm before this month. I hadn't seen Alefarm in maybe about half a year or something like this. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about Alefarm Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a look at this beer itself then. So I'll let you just have a little look at the artwork on this before we open it up. There you can see the nice monolith stone kind of sitting up there, which does look pretty cool actually. I remember that thing over in America recently where someone placed a monolith randomly in one of the deserts out in one of the middle American states, something like that. So reminds me a little bit of that. I don't know if that's maybe what this beer is named after. That's that really random thing. But there you can see the Alefarm Brewing symbol on the back of the can there. Of course it is like a barn, because remember they were first brewing at a farm to the north of Copenhagen. But this particular beer, as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, is an 8% double IPA. Looking at the ingredients list, which says barley, oats and wheat, I'm guessing it's probably going to be a New England IPA, but it says it's got Citra, Equinault and Mosaic in it. We know all these hops pretty well. All 4 of them I think have around 14% alpha acid. Citra's going to give you a lot of mango, some nice citrusy notes. Equinaught's mainly a limey leaning hop, and Mosaic gives you that lovely tangerine orangey sort of thing. It's a 440ml can. I think I paid about 55 or 60 Swedish kroners for this. Probably, I think 55 sounds more familiar. So let's say 55, that's about €5.50. It's about £5 sterling and maybe about $6, $6.50 American, just for those of you watching in different places. So yeah, for an 8% double IPA, that is certainly not bad. But yeah, it says consumed before May the 30th, 2022. But yeah, certainly looks pretty nice. This one, always nicely presented as you get from Alefarm. Does it say who did the artwork on this? No, it doesn't actually. But yeah, you always get quite nice artwork on these Alefarm Brewing cans. 440ml incidentally. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And I'll tell you right away, as soon as you open this, it does smell pretty damn nice actually. But I don't know what it was about March 2021. We ended up with a lot of Danish beers in the Lokalis Moskalig this month, and for April there seems to be a few, but not quite as many actually. So I don't know why it was we ended up with so many in particular from Denmark last month. But yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. I always enjoy the Danish beers, and hopefully we start to get some Norwegian ones at some stage as well. I'd love to get a few more different things from Norway, because we're still quite limited there. But maybe it's a bit more difficult with Norway because they don't have a free market in alcohol either. It's maybe the main reason is that Denmark has a free market rather than a state monopoly, so that could well be the reason. But anyway, as you can see, this beer has poured very much like a New England IPA. So as you can see, before the head fades away, it comes in maybe about 3/4 of a finger. I would say that's a perfect white head on this one, not even kind of creamy in colour, but it's got a really nice kind of frothy, bubbly character to it. So I really like that about it. But in terms of its colour, I would describe this one as a very bright yellow. It looks like a mango juice. I always enjoy comparing New England IPAs to different kinds of fruit juices because their appearance just reminds me of that. But yeah, a very big, bright yellow mango juice kind of colour, this one. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, which looks pretty nice. And you can see the level of haze on this beer is pretty impressive actually, but I wouldn't say it's the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs I've come across at 8%. Remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But yeah, it depends in the first instance on what exact malts you use. The haze level on these kind of New England IPAs depends on the wheat content and the oat content. The yeast will also play a role in there. So yeah, that varies from brewery to brewery, although theoretically speaking you've got more oats and wheat in the beer as you go up the alcohol scale, so it should get hazier, but that's not always the case. It is, as I say, it does vary from brewery to brewery. But yeah, it certainly looks like a nice beer, this one, and nothing particularly surprising about it in terms of its appearance when you consider the modern IPAs and you consider that it is an IPA. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Very curious about it. Yeah, again, it's kind of what you'd expect, and it's, you know, you can smell the aroma. You could smell the aroma on it when you opened it up, and it's a nice solid New England IPA. There's so many of these beers floating around these days, it's quite hard to be kind of blown away by them, if you like. And you know, Alefarm are a very solid producer within this style, so you kind of know what to expect. And we had one of these beers quite recently actually, so it's still fresh in the memory, although this one is another 1.5% heavier, I guess we could say. I think it was the other one 6.2? Maybe it's nearer 2% higher, I can't quite remember. But yeah, the aroma of this one does come across pretty nicely. So yeah, in terms of the malt base then, it's got a nice mixture of things going on there. As I've told you in previous reviews, when it comes to New England IPAs, in my opinion, you can get the ones that are more sort of yeasty and farmhousey. You can get the ones that are a little bit more rye and grainy, wheaty and bitey, oaty creamy, sort of barley malt leaning and more bready, and you can also get them being a little bit more brown sugary. Quite often though, these beers will display, you know, multiple characteristics, if you like, and this one seems to be quite well balanced in that sense. I get a good bit of yeastiness out of it. I do get a kind of barley malty type quality. You can smell some of the smoothness of the oats in there, and there is a good wee little bit of the kind of wheaty bitiness as well. So for me, the backbone of the beer is a soft white bready note there, and I think the yeast is kind of playing a big role there too. But on top of that, you can definitely smell a little bit of a kind of powdery oaty sort of thing, and you get a little bit of sweetness from the oats as well, which is quite nice. Some of these beers, of course, can have a little bit of lactose and things in them, so that's also worth noting. But yeah, I mean, this one for me, it does strike me as being a very bready leaning New England IPA, but it does sweeten up the more that you smell of it, I would say. So yeah, soft white bready base, a little bit of a more kind of yeasty character in there, then some smooth and slightly sweet oaty notes. I also get a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy type thing out of this one as well. You do get a little touch of sweetness out of this. That's a little bit more common with double IPAs, in fairness, because you've got a bit more alcohol in there, and those kind of brown sugary notes can quite often be alcohol. Sometimes they've got caramel and caramunic and things in them, but not always. But yeah, you do get a little bit of wheaty bitiness out of this one on the very back of the nose when you take the aroma in a bit more deeply. But yeah, this is quite a bready, yeasty, and kind of oaty leaning IPA for me. I thought it was going to be a little bit more wheaty in the beginning, but the aroma's mellowed out a little bit, so you get a wee bit more sweetness and stuff out of it, especially from the kind of brown sugary side too. So there's there's quite an interesting bunch of different things going on in this beer, I have to say. The malty side of it, I think, comes together quite nicely. I'm curious to see what that's going to translate to in terms of flavour. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, I think we've covered the malty side as much as we need to. But hoppy side of things, there's a wee bit of, there is a wee touch of earthiness in there. That's going to come from the mosaic, I think, out of the 3 hops that are in there. The green component is... It's got quite a nice big floral aromaticity to it. I wouldn't describe it as being overly spicy, to be honest with you, but it does have a little bit of spice kind of sitting underneath it. Maybe there's another bittering hop in there, such as Columbus or something, used in the early stages of the boil. This beer, New England IPAs, tend to rely on late edition hops rather than early edition hops. Remember, early edition hops give you your bitterness, and as you progress over the course of the boil, which is usually about 70 to 90 minutes in the case of an IPA, as you go through the boil, you get less bitterness as you go progressively in terms of the hops, and then you get more flavour and aroma later on. But yeah, there is a nice green component to this one. It's got a little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness to it as well, but the grass actually, I think, gets a bit more smooth the more that you smell of the beer, in fairness. So yeah, nice deep green component, good bit of floral aromaticity and a bit of lighter grassiness. But I mean, overall, the green component, I think, matches quite well. It's got a bit of smoothness to it, a bit of kind of bite, so it builds a good bridge with the very slight wheaty bitiness that you get in this beer as well. But yeah, you've got a lovely juicy fruitiness coming out of this beer too, which you would expect from a New England IPA. I can really get on board with that with this beer. So yeah, the juicy notes in there, the fruity notes are really interesting. So let's try and pinpoint what fruits we've got. For me, it's kind of interesting. It really leans towards the citrusy side a little bit more, and when you've got Equinaut and Mosaic in this, that kind of makes sense, and Citra is going to contribute there as well. So for me, it's the tangerine oranges that play a big role in this. You can smell the lime underneath, but the lime isn't quite as straightforward as being, straight up lime. It's got a little bit of a lemony note to it, and I think that's the Citra that's going to play a role there. But I get some lovely, juicy, but still quite oily tangerines. a good bit of a limey note in there, and there is also an element of a tropical fruit here too from the Citra. So I mean, when you take the aroma in, you get a good little bit of mango out of it. There's a bit of apricot in there, and there's maybe a wee bit of a stronger, there is maybe a little bit of a stronger passion fruity note sitting towards the back of the nose there as well. So yeah, it's an interesting aroma, this one. It's got a lovely juicy oily fruity character to it, bit of tropical notes, but I would say this one leans a bit more towards the tangerine notes and the lime rather than anything else. But take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma, always worth doing with these craft beers. But let's have a taste of this one and see how we get on. So yeah, this is the Monolith 8% double IPA, New England IPA quite obviously, from Alefarm Brewing in Greve, just to the southwest of Copenhagen on Sjælland in Denmark. Let's get stuck in. Always nice to return to these guys. Slanje, skål, cheers. That is nice. I like that. Bit more oily than I remember the other Alefarm beers being, and you know I'm a bit of a sucker for an oily IPA. So yeah, this one ticks the boxes. I'm going to say I like this one. It's been before the last one, before the Mornings on Mission Bay. It'd been a good while since I had an IPA from Alefarm. I think the last beers that I reviewed were dark beers from them, to be honest. But I like this. This is solid. Well done. See, the thing I've always found with Alefarm is their beers tend to be like very soft in terms of character, and that's always been their signature. If I think about Alefarm beers, I always think of them as being quite soft IPAs. This one has that, but at the same time it just adopts a slightly more oily mouthfeel, and I just like that. I've always liked my beers to be a little bit oily. So that potentially could be my favourite IPA I've had from Alefarm so far, but like I say, it's been a while since I've had them. I like the feel that this beer has a little bit more. The other one, the Mornings on Mission Bay, that was nice enough, but it was just very kind of soft. I just want a wee bit more oiliness out of the beer. I like the kind of soft bready flavour that they do, but in terms of mouthfeel, I just like I don't know, I just like an oily mouthfeel, to put it bluntly. Let me just, yeah. OCD, guys. I've always got to have the can in a nice position. That's it. But yeah, this beer gets a thumbs up from me. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. But you know, at an 8% and a 440ml can, yeah, you're only having one of these, I think. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour for you. Definitely. So yeah, it does carry through this idea that, you know, it gives you the impression from the flavour that it's going to be well balanced. It is absolutely 100%. So straight away with this beer, you can feel a nice smooth white bready quality just blanket in the middle of your palate. You get a nice soft, just doughy, fresh white bready kind of quality there, and that'll be a mix both from the base malt and from the yeast, I would say. You get that in the middle of your palate, absolutely. But if you go down the kind of middle line of your tongue, if you like, you get a nice sort of, you do get a lovely kind of smooth, oaty kind of quality coming out of this one. So yeah. Yeah, down the middle of your palate, you get a nice smooth oaty note there. And in the very centre of your palate, in that middle third of your tongue, it does become a little bit more kind of creamy. It's definitely got that. I mean, for sure, you've definitely got a little bit of that kind of coming out of there. And as you, how would you say, you know, as you move kind of further towards the edges, it does become a little bit sort of drier and powdery, if that makes sense. You do get a wee bit of that kind of powdery smoothness out of the oaty character. So yeah, the middle of your palate in this one, it maintains that Alefarm trademark softness, if you like. Absolutely. But sitting on top of that, in that very centre of your palate, you can feel there is a wee bit of a really concentrated brown sugar in there. But then it is more... you also get a concentration of the oats, and so it comes across as more of a kind of Werther's Original sort of butter candy type thing. And again, this is the alcohol flavours. There might well be a more brown sugary leaning malt in this one, and maybe going from the colour perhaps, maybe a bit of Golden Promise or a bit of Maris Otter or something like that. But yeah, again, it's a very thick and very smooth beer, this one, in terms of its malt base, which I do like, definitely. But the malt base is very straight shooting, smooth bready base, oaty note sitting on top, and then you've got that Werther's Original kind of note just sitting in the middle of your palate there, and that's the middle third of your tongue. Very straight shooting in that sense. If you go further back to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again you've got a little bit of a kind of doughy note out of it. You've got a little bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing, so you get a little bit of that, but that's quite minimal, I would say, in this beer. It is actually the oats really push back and smoothing out everything. But if you go to the very back of your tongue, you will get just a little touch of the wheat coming out of this one. I think this beer is a little bit more about the oats, but then again, I guess probably some of the bready character we're picking out is probably down to the wheat as well. So it's just a little bit of wheaty bitiness there, but you can definitely feel the overall wheaty presence in this beer, which I can definitely appreciate. I can really appreciate that with this one, absolutely. So yeah, the more you drink of this one, you will get a little bit more of the wheaty bite out of it, but on top of that back third of your palate, you can really feel the yeasty characters just pushing their way up, which is quite nice. So you can feel that the top of the flavour is quite high on the back third of your palate, and as you move further forward in this one, you can just feel it going forward and forward, and you can just feel it gradually kind of condensing down. But as you reach that border region, when you go into the middle third of your palate, it drops down quite dramatically, and then in the middle of your palate it's a wee bit more kind of condensed and things like this. So yeah, I do like how that sort of pieces together in this one, absolutely. So yeah, the malty, yeasty side of things in this beer is really nice, and I think as you go further into the aftertaste, you do get more of the wheaty side out of this beer as well, which is interesting too. But yeah, it has my approval. This, I like it. I like how that goes together. But let's focus on the hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, then you've got a nice little bit of an earthiness there. And as you move further forward, it very quickly becomes floral. You get a nice deep, big floral aromaticity pushing its way out of this beer. Absolutely. So you get a nice, big, deep floral aromatic note to this one. You know, as you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of spice to it, but I find the floral notes in this really more deep than anything else. It's not a really bitter beer, this one. It does develop a little bit of that later on, but no, it's a very nice, deep floral aromatic note that you get out of this beer. But then, yeah, round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, which again I can appreciate. I do like that side of this beer for sure. But yeah, the green component of this one, I think it is really leaning towards the floral part of the spectrum, absolutely. But then you just get a little bit of zestiness on the grassy side of things too, although it does have an element of smoothness. So yeah, I can really appreciate how everything pieces together in this beer, definitely. So yeah, I think that covers the green component quite well. But of course, it's the fruity side of things that works really nicely here. And the more you drink of this, the more oily it gets as well. But yeah, as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily, fruity kind of thing coming out of this beer. So on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get again a little bit of this kind of doughy, yeasty, bready kind of thing. You get a bit of that and a wee bit of a bread crusty, grainy quality there. But on that front third of your palate, underneath you do get a bit of the oaty kind of smoothness, and I'm guessing the wheat will be contributing in there as well. But then on top of that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So if you go towards the back of that, then there is a wee bit of that slightly more pungent passion fruity note, definitely. And that's going to come from the Citra, absolutely. So yeah, there is a wee bit of the Citra in there. As you move further forward from that, you get a nice wee bit of mango The mango does come out. I don't get so much in the way of apricot on this one. It's not soft enough to be apricot. It's more of a pungenty. The passion fruit, I think, starts to creep forward on this the more I drink of it. So a wee bit more passion fruit, a wee bit of a kind of mango-y quality, and then as you as you move on to that front half of that front third of your palate, that's when it gets more citrusy. So yeah, the tropical side of the beer, passion fruity and mango-y, and I think I would leave it there. But yeah, as you move on to that front half of the front third of your tongue, you get a nice tangerine orangey note from the mosaic. Then on the front bit, you get a little bit more of a limey character out of this one, which is absolutely, which is the Equinox. Absolutely, you do get a lot of that coming out of this beer for sure. So yeah, the limey notes I think are on almost the first quarter of that front third of your tongue, if that makes sense. What would that be? The first 12th of your tongue, something like that. But yeah, you do get that with this beer. And then behind that, it's, as I say, that kind of tangerine orangey note from the mosaic. So your Equinox coming out on the very tip of your tongue almost. You've got the mosaic just behind that, and then on the back half of that front third of your tongue, it's a bit more kind of it's a little bit more sort of passion fruity and mango-y, if you like. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together, and I think the oiliness of the fruit really helps. The oiliness in this beer helps bring out the more citrusy side of it. But yeah, I mean, overall, this is pretty damn solid. I mean, if you know Alefarm, I think this is a good beer. It's difficult to say whether this is one of the best IPAs that they've done, but generally speaking, I think it's well executed. So thumbs up to Alefarm for this one once again. In terms of the mouthfeel overall, to round off the review, I think overall it's kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. It's a light. It's an oily and slick mouthfeel overall, I should say. It's, in terms of hoppy bitterness, what do we say about this? Difficult to place. Remember, IBUs is the bit that I'm weakest on when it comes to reviewing beer. I think this one's probably about a standard 30, to be honest with you, or maybe 40 at a push. It does feel a little bit more bitter, and it develops a bit more bitterness, I think, the further you go into the aftertaste, but it's not crazy bitter, if that makes sense. So yeah, there is a nice, good green component to this one. It's got a nice bit of big bitterness to it, which I like, but it's not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness. The malty base, like I said, is big and smooth and slightly creamy, and you've got a juicy, kind of oily, fruity character coming out of this beer too. The overall vibe of this beer is quite oily, in fairness. I would definitely say that. But I like it. I really do like this one, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. I think Alefarm Brewing have done a solid job on this one, so take my hat off to them. I think this is probably one of my favourite beers that I've had from them so far, actually. And I think we've got another IPA coming out from them this month as well through Systembolaget, so we'll have a look at that. But yeah, let's leave it at that just now for this one then. This one was the Monolith, a double IPA with Citra, with Citra, Equinox and Mosaic, coming in at 8% ABV from Alefarm in Greve to the southwest of Copenhagen. Really enjoyed this one. Nice to review another beer from Alefarm, and I hope you guys enjoyed my take on it as well. So, pardon me, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Alefarm Brewing. Let me know any other Danish breweries that you would recommend that I check out. I love reviewing the Danish beers, and fingers crossed I can get a hold of those. But yeah, thank you again for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next review. See you very soon. Make sure you check out Alefarm. Skål.